Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's midnight back again, bringing you guys a brand new series here. I don't know if this is going to be the first episode or not because I actually have 3 of these planned already. So I don't know what order they're going to go up in. But regardless, this is going to be a midnight 1v1 or one-on-one series. And today in this episode, I am joined by Robert or RK128. How's it going, man? Why don't you go ahead and tell people about yourself?
First of all, thank you so much, Midnight, for letting me join you in this visceral breakdown of why Microsoft sucks. But before we get to that, I'm RK128. I'm on lordsofgaming.net. I'm a writer on that site, and I'm also in the Last Stand Media Discord, and I love video games. I love Sonic, and there's a lot to talk about.
A Sonic fan, huh? All right. Well, we won't hold that against you too much, you know.
Come on,
Uh,
bro.
Sonic,
Again, really?
Sonic's all right. He's got nothing on Bucky the Beaver, though. So,
Fair enough, I guess.
but yeah, thanks for coming on. It's good to have you. Today, the topic of today's discussion and video is going to be Xbox. What's going on with Xbox? The changes that they've been doing, putting their games on other platforms, shutting down studios, the current state of Xbox, what we think about it, and what we think the future might hold. So, how's that sound? You ready to get into it?
I'm ready to get into the murder of Microsoft. Let's go.
The murder of Microsoft. All right. So why don't we
Yeah.
go ahead and start with you? Why don't you just go ahead and tell us a bit about how you're feeling right now about Xbox and Microsoft and everything?
I'm kind of joking around the whole murder Microsoft thing, but to give my background before I get into this news, my background with Xbox is my first Xbox was the Xbox One X in 2000 and maybe 2020 maybe I tried to get a Series X, I couldn't get one, so I got that instead, and I
Wow.
really and I really enjoyed the whole idea of what Phil Spencer and company was trying to sell everybody. That Game Pass was this platform that people could, these developers, publishers that own studios, you could put out these risky ventures and you'll be safe, even if you don't make the Call of Duty numbers. And I traded into One X. It got the Series X in, I believe, 2021, maybe 2021, 2022,
Mm-hmm.
I believe. And no, it was definitely 2021. And I've been using that predominantly, like, a lot, until relatively recently when Microsoft started making some really baffling decisions, in my personal opinion, where they were talking about, like, they started bringing the games to other platforms. Their games were running better on other platforms than their own home console, and they were and then but that feels like very small potatoes in comparison to what they're doing now, which is they essentially they sold us snake oil. That's how I personally feel
That's how you
about the
feel?
situation, where they say Game Pass was sustainable. They say Game Pass allowed developers to take risks. They say Game Pass was allowing indie studios to get more eyes on them. And it feels like with the closure of Tango, it's they lied to us, because they publicly stated, when Jeff Grubb posted rumors about Hi-Fi Rush not meeting expectations internally within Microsoft and Bethesda, they
Mm-hmm.
said, no, that's a lie. It actually met and exceeded our expectations. If it met and exceeded your expectations, why is the studio shuttered now? Why?
Yep.
And from the sounds of it, which we'll definitely get into as this conversation goes on, this is more and more feeling like a finger snap decision that happened overnight, not something that was planned. And that just makes it even more heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
going forward, for me, while I still intend to use my Xbox for the stuff I purchased already, and because it took advantage, I believed in the Game Pass system, and I stacked up. I stacked up on Game Pass subs, and I'm technically locked in until 2026. But going forward, I'm gonna try to buy the Microsoft titles that come out and the indie games that come out that release on the platform, because I can't just assume that something like Hellblade 2 the developer is gonna be okay, because I assume that for Tango and Hi-Fi Rush, and now they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
I could easily see within the next 6 to 12 months, we hear that Ninja Theory is shut down, and that is a horrible thing to kind of think about.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be horrible. I agree. That is something that I've heard people talk about. And the sad part is it doesn't even seem that far fetched these days, because Ninja Theory is a very talented studio. And I think Hellblade 2 is going to be good. But I don't think it's going to sell very well. Because it's kind of just like Hi-Fi Rush, there's no physical version. It's a Game Pass title. It's only going to Xbox and PC, so it's pretty much going to be reliant on PC and Steam user base to buy it up. Because most Xbox people will probably just play it on Game Pass, the majority. So I don't think it's going to sell that well. So it'll be in the same situation where they're like, we spent all this money. I'm sure that game, if you look at the production values, if you look at the graphics, the motion capture, and everything that they've done, it has to have cost a lot of money to make. So I would be surprised if that game recoups its money. It's probably going to at least have somewhat of a loss. And I do worry that the current Microsoft, whoever is calling the shots now, the bean counters, the money counters, if it's Phil or if it's above him, I don't know. But the way that they've been going right now, I worry that, like you said, that they're going to look at this and they're going to be like, we spent all this money, we lost money. Ninja Theory, we just got to close them. And that's crazy. I feel like if they close Ninja Theory, it's definitely over. Like, we're saying it's over now. I put out a video today when I'm recording this that says it's over. But it's not 100% over now. It's like 80% over. But if they close Ninja Theory or another big, good studio, it's definitely going to be over as far as the console is concerned. Microsoft will live on. Xbox Gaming, Microsoft Gaming will live on as like a publisher, putting their games all over the place. But as far as a console, if it's not dead already, it definitely will be if they shut down another beloved studio. So
Yeah, honestly, it feels like Xbox. There's always the joke of, oh, that's Sega, but this is basically what was this kind of was a lot of what this kind of happened with Sega back in the two in like when the Dreamcast died. When the Dreamcast died, you had a bunch of titles initially planned for the Dreamcast go to the Xbox, go to the GameCube, go to the PS2, and then once that batch of games came out, they just laser focusing on Sonic and whatnot, and the quality took a nosedive for a little while until it got back up during the PS3 360 generation, and especially once they bought Atlas and the like. And with Microsoft, it's awful when you really sit down and think about the whole idea of you have these talented developers who who have given the promise of, you know what, your game doesn't need to sell 5 million copies. It just needs to get 5 million players. And now the whole metrics is flipped on its head. And you have developers like Obsidian, Double Fine, formerly Tango, Ninja Theory, In Exile, and the like, making these smaller titles with under the assumption that, hey, we're safe. Hey, we don't. Hey, and now they're not. None of them are safe, and it puts such a dark cloud over the Xbox showcase. With at the time of this recording is literally a few weeks away. We're gonna get all these really great game announcements, and I imagine a lot of us are gonna be really excited. But there's gonna be this thought in the back of our heads that, is this gonna be the studio's last game? And that is such a terrible thought to have, when you should be celebrating the idea that, oh, Machine Games is making Indiana Jones. Oh, I can't wait to see if they make another one. when the likelihood is if that doesn't sell well, they're probably gonna be a support studio for whatever its software makes, or and that's just a fortunate thing. They could just get shut down.
Yeah, I agree. It sucks. It's like I don't know what the goal is. I don't know what the metrics is. It's like if the goal is to provide content for Game Pass, then a game shouldn't necessarily have to be 100% profitable because you're getting money from Game Pass as well. You could consider like let's say the game technically loses money, but it could be like a marketing expense basically for Game Pass because that game is marketing Game Pass. So you have to not just count the money that comes directly from purchases of Hellblade 2, but you also have to take some of the Game Pass money and be like, that's Hellblade 2 money too. I don't know how they're doing the math. I don't know who's drawing the connections.
Not to
I'll
cut
tell you
you
what
off,
though. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry for cutting you off, but that's the problem. All of us were kind of thinking it doesn't really matter where the money was coming from. Microsoft was happy with engagement, player count, and that is not the case anymore. And
Yeah,
now
seems like it.
now we're in a situation where we're looking at Microsoft's developers have to look at things how PlayStation's and Nintendo's developers look at things with unit sales. And a lot of these games are not built with that in mind. So
Yep. Yeah, I'll tell you what, if they shut down my beloved Obsidian, I'm gonna freak out, man. I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna be so upset. I don't know what there's nothing I can do. I'll just be angry. It's not like I'm not gonna like pull up to to the offices or anything, but
oh come
I'll
on,
be so
oh
mad.
come on, you're not gonna join me and when I take my trip to Japan and commit seppuku in front of Phil Spencer.
No, no, I'm not doing that. But if they touch my beloved Obsidian, it's gonna be a war. They better not. But because
That's me and Double Fine, man. If they shut down Double Fine, we're gonna have. I'm trying. Look. You're talking to a Robert who is significantly calmer after blowing up after the Tango announcement. I was beyond livid, and there was this one comment that you probably saw where Matt Booty, his last name is very fitting in the situation, where he made a comment, somewhat along the lines of, "We need smaller titles that award winning." That was Hi-Fi Rush,
yeah,
and
he's an
that is
idiot.
the studio. That's the studio you just shut down.
Yeah, I don't know how he
What
still
is
has a
going
job.
on?
They need
I
to get
feel
rid
like
of him. He sucks.
I feel like
Um,
if anyone's head's gonna roll, it's not gonna be Phil Spencer because he's the marketing mouthpiece for Microsoft, and it's not gonna be Sarah Bond. It's gonna be Matt Booty that gets his head rolled.
I don't know that it even matters. Like I said in my video, it's over. If they're going to be putting their games on PlayStation and to a lesser extent Switch, it's basically already over in terms of like a console because consoles live and die on exclusives. If you don't have exclusive games, then there's no point in your console because they can just get a PC or they can just get the other console that does have exclusive games and still play your games too. And they can just have the best of both worlds, the best of all worlds. So if they're going to be porting their games to other studios, then basically you're going third party. They just don't have the balls to come out and say it. And then they're shutting down studios. It makes no sense shutting down Tango. Tango was very talented. They shipped great games. Hi-Fi Rush obviously was a great game. And I just don't know. It doesn't make any sense. One thing I saw a post somewhere. I don't know if there's any validity to it at all, but just somebody was saying that like maybe one of the reasons why they shut down Tango was because they lost a bunch of their talent when Mikami left. I don't know if that's true.
That's nonsense. That's nonsense. One of the developers that worked at Tango came out and said that's nonsense. That's not true.
Hmm, I
So
don't know.
that's basically somebody trying to cope about the situation, or maybe they were just kind of trying to put thoughts together that there's no line.
Hmm.
If that makes any kind of sense, I guess.
I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense why you would shutter a studio that actually ships good games. Especially when they talk all this big talk about how Japan is so important and we love Japan and we want to get a
They
foothold
lied.
in Japan. Phil Spencer was like, "Oh, the first trip I'm taking is I'm going out to visit Tango in Japan," and I think that was the first trip he made. And he was so excited, and then they just shut down the studio for no reason. The reason that they gave is because they weren't currently working on a project. They were in the pitching phase. They didn't want to shut down people that were already working on a game. We'll shut down the team that just actually performed really good and
It's
wanted to
even
make a
worse.
sequel. It's
It's even
stupid.
worse. It's even worse than that. The situation is basically it wasn't even just they were trying to pitch a Hi-Fi Rush 2. They were genuinely they wanted more. They wanted more manpower so they can go ahead and make a Hi-Fi Rush 2. Something that is common in game development.
Yeah.
And same thing with Arcane Austin. Like, oh look, we can kind of sit down and say, you know what? We can see the logic here in some capacity because Redfall was such a failure, and that studio should have either A, done a better job, or B, that title should have had more. I mean, Microsoft should have did something to help that studio out instead of letting them drown. And they even threw them under the bus when after that game's launch and said like and they really defend them all that much.
Well, they threw
And
they threw Bethesda publisher under the bus, not necessarily Arcane's. They were basically saying that Bethesda's separate, and they were saying that ZeniMax, like Bethesda corporate, should have been watching that game and making sure that shit was right. I don't think they threw
Microsoft should,
Arcane as much on, but I mean, Arcane did also get thrown under the bus too. That one I can understand. I'm still not happy about it, but that one I can at least kind of understand because they did ship Redfall, which was a turd, and it was reported and pretty much confirmed that they lost like 70% of their staff during the development of Redfall because people didn't want to make a live service game. They wanted immersive sims, so they left. That came out, and that wasn't really much disputed. I think that's pretty factual.
that is factual. And the sad part is that they were trying to staff up to make another Dishonored
Yep.
or another sim game, man.
Yeah, it sucks, but that one I can kind of the only one that really I don't understand at all and that really pisses me off is Tango. Like those other small studios, like the mobile studios and stuff. Honestly, I don't care. I feel bad. I feel bad when anyone loses their job, but I don't care as a gamer because I wasn't playing their games. And one of them wasn't actually shut down; it was rolled into to ESO. And I think ESO is a good product. So
It
giving
is.
ESO some extra support isn't such a bad thing. Tango is really the real killer for me. The two things that Microsoft have done that have just got me ready to just be like, fuck them, I'm just going to play elsewhere, is porting their games to other platforms and shutting down Tango. Those are the two killers to me.
And it's probably even more salt in the wound. Originally, I'm a writer on Lords of Gaming, and one of
Yep.
the editorials I was in the process of working on was like this big editorial covering a bunch of games that Microsoft's publishing, and they brought bring and they and sorry, a bunch of games Microsoft published and that they were bringing over to PlayStation, and the fact that almost every single one of them outside of Grounded runs better on PlayStation 5 than it does on Xbox.
Yep.
And
That's another great thing
or
I've been seeing.
or if it doesn't run better, it has better visual features.
It's the same thing
And
with Fallout, by the way, if you didn't know.
I know,
Um,
I know about that. The PlayStation 5 version has the performance mode working correctly, the
yeah, with
quality
better visuals.
modes, the quality mode working correctly, while the Xbox version is bugged and only the performance mode is usable.
Yeah.
And if Microsoft wants to be a third party publisher and be like Sega, then be like Sega and stop beating around the bush. Just say that we want to be a complete third party. And I feel like the Xbox Game Showcase in June is going to be where this band-aid is potentially ripped off, because I firmly believe that there's a very high likelihood that a majority of the games shown off is going to be PlayStation's and Nintendo logos next to all of them. I'll be very surprised if any of them are Xbox only. And you
Yeah, I don't know.
probably I imagine you listen to Defining Duke as well. And one of the comments Mr. Maddie Place has made in recent episodes is the status of Avowed and how that's very likely that's going to get delayed. I personally think if that game gets delayed, it's partially going to be because they're going to get a PlayStation version day and date ready alongside the Xbox version.
Yeah,
I
I don't
mean,
know.
why
It's
not?
ridiculous. I mean, it's like I said, there's just if that is what they're going to do, then there's just no point in owning an Xbox at all. Like I said, I don't fundamentally have any problem with other gamers getting to enjoy games. Like I'm not upset that a PlayStation player could play Avowed. Like that doesn't upset me in the slightest. But what does annoy me and what makes me just basically be like, well, it's pointless to worry about the console that is Xbox anymore, is because, like I said, if you can play the Xbox games on PlayStation, then there's no reason why anyone would buy an Xbox. So anyone who doesn't already have one right now, why would you go up to Best Buy or Walmart or Amazon and pick up an Xbox Series X if you can play Avowed and if you can play Starfield and if you can play eventually Halo and all these games? If they're just coming to the PlayStation or if they're on PC already as well, why wouldn't you just grab a PC, or why wouldn't you grab a PlayStation? You have the PlayStation, you can play God of War, you can play The Last of Us, you can play Ghost of Tsushima, the GOAT, and then you can still play Avowed and you can still play Fable if that is the case, if that is what they do. There's literally 0 point at all to get an Xbox. And some people might say, well, what about Game Pass? Well, Game Pass isn't enough. Game Pass is not enough to sell a $500 piece of hardware and a subscription. It's just not. People will just they'll get a PlayStation and then they'll pay $50 to $70 for the game, the couple games a year that they want, and that's it. Game Pass is not enough.
It also does not help if they're shutting down studios of these creative talents.
Yep.
What incentive? One of the reasons these creative projects were greenlit in the first place is because they want titles to put on Game Pass. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen if, say, for example, you have Compulsion Games and South of Midnight. You have Double Fine and a smaller title. You have Ninja Fury. And those three studios, once all their games come out, we find out like 6 to 12 months, their studios are shuttered. There's no reason, and then like a big draw Game Pass play these creative games for a flat $16 to $25. I guarantee you that we will touch on this probably, but they're gonna bump the price up if Call of Duty goes into Game Pass.
Yep, they talked about that.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, and you mentioned like, why you buy a $500 box if you're just going to use Game Pass? You can use Game Pass on your PC, not natively. You can use it with the cloud. You can use it with the cloud on your phone. You can use it with GeForce Now and get the best version of those titles running off of a cloud, running on super powerful PC hardware.
Yeah.
And
there's just no point in owning the console anymore. And if that's the way they're going, like I said, like you said, like we both said, they want to be a publisher. They want to be a third party publisher, but they don't have the balls to say it yet. Every step that they're taking, every action that they're taking is telling you that they're moving to a third party publisher like Sega. But they just haven't come out and said it yet. Maybe they will at the showcase, like you said. I did see, and somebody pointed out that I think it was Sarah Bond in her tweet about the showcase, she had a green heart and she had a blue heart. So that blue heart, one would assume that's for PlayStation. So I think it's over. Like I said, my video today, obviously it will have been a while by the time this video hits my channel, but it was titled "It's Over," and that's what I'm thinking. It's not over for Xbox as a brand, but as a console that's actually viable, that people want to go out and buy and compete. It's over. They've thrown in the towel. They've already thrown it in. Here it is a towel. They tossed that bitch. It's a wrap. That's where I'm at. And, it sucks, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't know if I even care. anymore because I have a
Well,
PC, I have a
how?
PlayStation.
Why? I'm sorry to cut you off again, but why should you care? They eroded our trust. They sold us the snake oil that was Game Pass protects smaller developers.
Hmm.
And with Tango being shuttered, and as I hope I really hope I'm wrong when I say this, the likelihood Ninja Theory is probably next in a few months. We can't. There's no trust in them. I can't listen to anything. I'm going to use some terms that the LSM host
Go
used.
ahead.
Phil Phil Spender, Matt, like Phil Spender and company use. We can't believe them anymore, and we probably shouldn't have believed them in the first place because they're just these corporate mouthpieces. But they seemed very earnest with their vision. That's why I was predominantly a Nintendo and PlayStation dude before I got my Xbox Series X. I was disenfranchised by PlayStation's more like singular focused efforts with the PS5 generation. But now it really feels like even if I don't completely drive with some of the decisions PlayStation has made, they seem to have a better. They seem to have a good. They seem even if they have their own issues. The Helldivers thing recently is a very baffling situation, but that's a whole other story. At least they consistently put out good to great games that even if PlayStation Plus doesn't have day and date, you don't need that day and date if you're still getting good indie games on the service and a ton of quality games to play on that. And eventually in the future, their backwards compatible efforts with PS2 and PS3 hopefully will pan out. So that library will be even more bolstered and justify the almost $200 a year that PS Plus Premium costs. So, in the end of the day, it just feels like Xbox, while they definitely have great games, while some of their services are genuinely co- cost effective for the consumer, it really doesn't feel like that's being given to the developers. And I feel like that is the most important thing. Developers need to have financial security because if they aren't safe, they're not making amazing games. And if they're not making amazing games, what is the purpose of Microsoft being a game publisher? Because a part of the whole idea of being a game publisher is that these developers put their blood, sweat, and tears, wearing their hearts on their sleeve, talking about how great you are, about giving them the chance to be so open and just be able to make what you want to make with a blank check or a sizable check at the very least. And to kind of cap off my thoughts, recently The Verge posted an article as of this writing that said Tango that John Johannes, I believe from Tango, came out and said recently that they felt emboldened and they felt secure very happy with the state of the studio was at, and this was 1 month before the studio got shuttered, and a few months before that, Phil Spencer visited the studio. Does that sound familiar? If you're a PlayStation fan, that does sound familiar. When
Hmm.
when Jimmy Bones or Jim Ryan, he went to Studio London, and they celebrated him leaving PlayStation, and that literally days later, he publicly announced, "Oh yeah, your studio's dead."
Yep. That's funny. Yeah, I saw those pictures side by side. It was pretty funny, although not really. Um, Yeah, I mean, I think some good points that you made. I don't know, like what the Xbox model is not sustainable right now. As Colin
No.
has been saying for a long time, I get Xbox with day and date drops, Game Pass is no longer sustainable. Maybe it never was because they don't have enough subscribers to cover the cost of these big games that they're throwing in. So something has to give. They either need to pull off the band aid and say, hey, first party games are no longer going to be coming day and date. You know what I mean? You're going to have to buy first party games, and maybe in a year or so they'll drop into Game Pass or something. Or they're going to have to do what they are doing, which is seemingly just give up on the console and just go third party. That way they can get their bags on PlayStation, they can get their bag on Nintendo to cover the cost of development. That seems to be the direction that they're going instead, because it seems like they can't just stay with the status quo, which is to just put their games on PC and Game Pass, because they don't sell on Xbox because they're in Game Pass, and they're not selling well enough on PC to cover the full development cost. So they seem to be running in the negative, and that's come into a lot of scrutiny now that they just spent $70 billion on Activision, because now the high ups at Microsoft are looking at it and they're like, yo, we're trying to get this return on investment. What's going on? A couple things too that I want to address, a couple arguments that I've heard that I just want to randomly address. Like, shout out to my boy Lockmort. I was talking to him yesterday about this. One point that he made was that, Xbox fans are maybe potentially to blame. This was his argument, because they gas up everything that Microsoft does. And they talk about like every small win that Microsoft has is like a massive W, which emboldens the company to not strive for greatness, basically. And my counterpoint to that, I don't 100% agree with that. My take, actually, I feel like Xbox gamers have Stockholm syndrome. I really do. That Xbox gamers have
Sorry,
Stockholm
that's terrible.
syndrome, because it's been so bad for so long. Like, Xbox gamers survived the Xbox One generation, and it was horrible. Xbox gamers survived 2022 when there was zero games at all. So anytime that there is a little bit of hope, or there is a W, or there is a game, Xbox gamers, it's like a person with Stockholm syndrome. Like, let's say you are a person who's been kidnapped. And your kidnapper's nice to you and they give you some food. You start to be like, oh man, this is the best meal ever. Oh, this guy, he's not so bad. He's giving me this meal. That's kind of how Xbox gamers, I feel like, they are,
Wow.
because they finally get something good and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing, because they don't know better, because they've been getting abused all through Xbox One, all through 2022. So honestly, I really do feel like Xbox gamers, the reason why they react so excitedly when any small win happens, is because to them, with what they've had to deal with all the body blows that they've been absorbing, that win feels a lot bigger comparatively, if that makes sense. Yeah, but
I
go ahead.
think, yeah. I'm sorry if I laughed, but that was hysterical, man. But I think you're kind of right in a way, because like there's this issue that Xbox has kind of been like, because they're this it. Sorry if I'm stumbling my words.
No, go
I
ahead.
feel like I feel like this kind of goes back to the whole betrayal aspect that a lot of like Xbox diehards were feeling during the Xbox business update, where they were so mad when they said they were bringing this stuff multi-platform. It feels like they were being lied to. And
Yeah,
what's happening? What happened with Tango right now? I feel like part of the reason I had such a visceral reaction to that news, it isn't just because I loved Hi-Fi Rush, and it was, if Final Fantasy 16 didn't come out last year as of this recording, it would have been my game of the year. Hi-Fi Rush is this, like, right. It was neck and neck. It was a coin toss which game was better to me.
was what game?
And
What game?
Final Fantasy 16.
Oh, Baldur's Gate 3 was game of the year. But continue. Go on. Go on.
I'm not a big fan of the CRPGs, unfortunately.
I
So
wasn't
that's
either.
probably
I wasn't either. But this game was just so good. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
all good. But Hi-Fi Rush is Microsoft made this prompt, like we kind of been talking about for a little while now. Microsoft sold these promises to people like me that they cared about the developer, they cared about the little guy, they cared about Japan, they cared about indie games, and with shuttering Tango, even if it's not completely intentional, it really feels like they completely shifted course on a dime recently from
Yeah.
whatever plan they had. there's a genuine possibility that when they were making those comments last year that Hi-Fi Rush met their targets, they weren't lying. But that was because that was before Activision came in the building. Now that they're in the building, there's probably like a completely different mindset in what is a successful title. And because now, well, you can make the argument that them bringing their stuff to more platforms is them trying to survive as a company, well, the gaming division at least. I would make the argument that shuttering talented developers that you could have instead put on Bethesda franchises that would have been really interesting spin-offs. Like you could have had a stealth game from Arcane Austin that based in Elder Scrolls or like Fallout or like a Japanese developed Fallout game. That would be fucking sorry for
That would have
cursing.
been super cool. Yeah,
That
imagine
would
like
be
a Fallout that takes place in Japan, made by
yeah,
Tango.
Tango.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, like you could have had a Fallout in Japan with art style similar to Hi-Fi Rush, and instead of being like, and you could have had it be a JRPG.
Yeah,
God damn it!
could have
I
done a lot
want
of
that.
stuff. They
I
suck.
want that now.
Yeah,
But
I think. Oh, go
I
ahead.
guess I guess the point I'm making is with Xbox, it feels like the promises they made are broken, and if if people's trust in Xbox wasn't eroded with that business update, it is gone now.
It's gone now.
And
It's like the worst
and
it's
for,
been since 2013, pretty much.
this is based. And for me personally, I'm never gonna forgive Xbox for shuttering Tango because this reminds me of I don't know if you remember this, but when Okami came out back in 2006, 2007, I think it was 2006. I'm not 100% sure. It was developed by Capcom. It was published by Capcom and developed by Clovis Studios. And the Clovis Studios is a name that should definitely ring some bells because developers from Clovis Studios, when that studio got shuttered, they went they formed Platinum Games, and some of those developers formed Tango. And history is repeating itself again. You have a talented developer who made an amazing video game that got critical acclaim, that got awards, that the community is rallying behind. And what is your reward? What is your reward? Your studio
Yeah.
gets shut down because you didn't sell enough. When you was developing that title, sales were not the focus. And if sales were the focus, mind my language here for a moment.
Go ahead.
Why the fuck did you shadow drop it then? Why did you shadow drop that game if you knew it was gonna be if sales were gonna be important?
I don't even think them shadow dropping it hurt the sales because actually I think that may have helped the sales because it was a massive zeitgeist moment where everyone was talking about it, everyone was streaming it, and it was top of the Steam sales chart and stuff like that for a while. So I actually don't think that the shadow drop necessarily hurt it. I just think the whole business model, like I mentioned before, of Game Pass and PC alone, is apparently not enough for them, and they're too much of cowards to double down. I want to go ahead and bring this home here soon because I got some stuff to handle.
Of course.
But let me get my final thoughts on the subject, and then I'll pass it to you for your final thoughts, and we'll bring it home. But my final thoughts is like Xbox gamers, we've been waiting for so long, and it's always been, oh, next year is going to be our year. Next year is going to be the year. Next year is going to be the year. Oh, what about next year though? It's lining up. And the crazy thing about it is after saying that all this time, we got a glimpse of it in 2021. 2021 was fire if you're an Xbox gamer. You had
Oh God.
Forza
So
Horizon
good.
5 was a banger. Halo Infinite at launch was a banger, and it was doing really good. They had Psychonauts 2. They had Flight Sim. They had all this stuff. There was other games too that I'm forgetting about. It was really good, and that was a glimpse. But then 2022, nothing. 2023, disappointment with Redfall. Starfield was great, was good, but also underwhelmed a bit. It wasn't what people were wanting. It was no Skyrim in space like people were wanting. And then all the bad choices. The ironic part of it is that they are choosing the absolute worst time to bend the knee because it's finally here. That one more year. Oh, wait till next year. Wait till next year. Wait till next year. Next year is now. Like all the stars are actually aligning. Like studios are actually ready with games to drop. In 2024, we're going to have we're supposed to have Indiana Jones. We're going to have Starfield Shattered Space. We're going to have other expansions for Elder Scrolls and Fallout. And there's going to be other games too. What am I forgetting? There's several games that are supposed to come out this year. Flight Sim 2024. Avowed is supposed to be this year, although it might get delayed a little bit. In 2025, we're going to have, if Avowed is delayed, we'll have Avowed next year. We'll have perhaps Fable, South of Midnight.
Mm-hmm.
Like the games are finally coming at a oh, we have Hellblade. I forgot about Hellblade. Hellblade is this year. Like the games
Microsoft's making us forget about that too because they're not marketing.
They're not marketing. Yeah, but like literally the time is now. If they just had some balls and they would make all of these games exclusive and these games actually come out and they score pretty well, you could actually start to make the case like, hey guys, we got something going on over here. You might want to pick up one of those Xboxes. They could actually slowly start to chip into market share and make things a bit more even and slowly start to win back people and perhaps do something. But instead, they're throwing in the towel and they're going third party. They've given up already, as I mentioned. That's my final thoughts. It's over because they've given up. They're porting their games to other platforms, which invalidates any reason to own the Xbox. And they're shutting down studios that they should not be doing. They're cowards and they've given up and it's over. That's my final thoughts. Let me pass it to you. Go ahead and give us your final thoughts. Bring it home for us.
Thanks, man. It's just, I feel like if you're an Xbox fan, if you're an Xbox diehard, and if you really want to make your claim, not make your claim, make a stand against Microsoft making these really bad decisions, shuttering studios and the like, the best thing you can do is vote with your wallet. Like, you don't even have to cancel your Game Pass subscription if you stacked up like I did. I believed in it. I feel stupid for believing in it. But
oh, me too, by the way. I have it prepaid until 26 as well, which I'm not that mad about because I'll get value out of it, but I'm not going to renew it after that. No, it's
same. Over. I canceled it. It's just waiting for it to run out at this point. For me, it's just if you want to support the developers, if you personally want to feel like I did what I could to make sure Ninja Theory was alive. I did what I could to make sure Obsidian is still alive. I did what I could to make sure Double Fine is still alive. Potentially Machine Games, etc., etc. Don't just play these games on Game Pass.
Buy the game.
Buy the game if you can. If you can't buy it at launch, buy it after launch when you can. Because we were all led to believe that these developers were fine under the Game Pass model. That we didn't have to worry about buying these games like we do on PlayStation and Nintendo Switch because Microsoft told us we don't have to worry about that. We're going to take care of them. They're not taking care of them. And they publicly stated that essentially with the actions they've made recently. So if you want to feel a little bit better about the fates of these developers in the future, try to buy these games. And if not, play them. Just play these great games coming up because I feel awful saying this. This might be the last time we play something from Ninja Theory, the studio that made Enslaved, Heavenly Sword, DMC. This might be the last time.
I hope not.
So I came down for cold. This might be the last time we play something from Machine Games, developers that made the great Wolfenstein titles. This might be the last time we play something from Double Fine, who made Psychonauts and amazing point-click adventure games. And, God forbid, this might Avowed and The Outer Worlds 2 might be the last time we play something from Obsidian. We gotta support these developers if we can. Because Microsoft isn't supporting them.
Yes, sir. He's spitting. I totally agree. Absolutely. Vote with your wallet, people. If you're pissed off at Xbox, let them know and let them know by canceling Game Pass. But if you want to support the studios that you love, buy the game. Cancel Game Pass, because it's not supporting them, and buy the game. That way you own it too. You own it and you'll have it forever. Well, potentially forever. You know, they could eventually take those away with digital rights, but that's another topic. But yeah, that would be
That's
my
what
advice
PC
as
is
well.
for. That's what PC is for. If you have a
Exactly.
gaming rig.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Anyways, but it's been a great conversation. I really appreciate you coming on. I thought it was really good. I totally agree. Um, just in summary, it sucks. Rest in peace, Tango, Arcane Austin, everybody else. I hope everybody moves on and finds better jobs. And yeah, hopefully Microsoft gets their shit together. It's not necessarily over yet, but I feel like the writing is definitely on the wall, and it basically is over. I guess we'll see. Let's see how Hellblade does. Let's see what they say in June at their showcase. But
And don't believe a word they say if they say Hellblade. We got a lot of great engagement because that's what they said about Hi-Fi Rush.
yeah,
Look
support
at
the
the
devs,
sales
buy the
numbers.
game if you like them,
Exactly.
and hopefully that will be enough.
I hope so too, Bubba.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for me. RK128, writer. You can find him on lordsofgaming.net. Go ahead and pass it to you. Final thoughts, man. Anything you want to say? Any shout outs you want to give, or where people can find you, or anything?
Well, if people can find me at RK128 at RK1283 on Twitter. Sorry, made my mistake. At RK128.
I'll put it on the screen too. I'll put it on the screen.
I'm sorry.
RK128. No problem.
I'll send it to you later. And I just want to just shout out Lords of Gaming, the Iron Lords, and the Finding Duke, and all these other places that not only given me a chance but inspired me. And and thank you, Midnight, for letting me hop on, and we could just go have this great back and forth about Microsoft's future. And even if we kind of said some harsh comments, we love the games Microsoft does make and has published. We just wish that Microsoft, they probably do care about their developers, but actions speak louder than words, and their actions imply that they don't care anymore. And I really hope that is just me being emotional still about this whole situation.
Exactly. All right. Well said, man. Well said. I think this was a good conversation. I think we got some good bars off. So if you guys are listening, leave a like on the video. Let us know in the comments what you thought, if you agree or disagree with us, and why. We'll be reading and responding to every comment. But yeah, RK, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it. Make sure you guys check him out at lordsofgaming.net. He writes on there from time to time, some good articles. And yeah, Xbox, do better. Do better, or just give up and make it official, I guess.
You
Stop
know
bringing
what?
people on.
Hold the line. We held the line for you. Hold the line for us.
That's right. And don't you dare shut down Obsidian. I'll kill you. No, I won't. I won't actually kill you. That's not a real threat. Not an actual real threat. I do not mean that in any sort of way. But I will be very upset. I'll cry. All right, guys. So that's it. Everybody, have a good one. Peace out.
Peace out.